Hi everyone, welcome to Sam Clift Talks. Today we're going to be covering chapter 4 of Ren's life story. We're officially at the halfway point, so it's been a heavy ride so far, unsurprisingly, given what Ren's been through. If you haven't seen my reactions to the previous 3 chapters, check them out in the playlist. These are best followed chronologically so that you can get the full experience of Ren's story as he talks through how he progresses with his illnesses. If you haven't yet seen my reaction to Ren's previous 3 chapters, check them out in the playlist. These are best followed chronologically so that you get the full experience, so do take a step back if you need to. For those of you not aware, I approach these reactions from a mental health perspective. So I'm going to be sharing some of my own experiences with mental illness, but I'm also going to be looking to elaborate on what Ren is discussing as well. So hopefully the two can merge and it creates hopefully a broader narrative and a wider conversation that you may relate to, or you may learn a thing or two perhaps as well. So without further ado, let's jump into chapter 4.
Cool. During the year I spent living back with my mum, I was leaning even more heavily into scouring the internet for answers. It became like an obsession. Most people my age were watching porn. I was on PubMed learning about mitochondria. I educated myself in things like methylation, the building blocks of mitochondria, various immune cells and their functionality, and which supplements could help theoretically bring about homeostasis in my body. I taught myself of the various pathogens that could lead to the symptoms I was experiencing. Around this time I started ordering medical test kits from private medical facilities. I had a eureka moment when, after posting some poop in a tube to a lab in London, I discovered I had an amoeba and another more benign gastrointestinal parasite called blastohominis. Both could plausibly lead to systemic pain and fatigue. Upon researching the best course of action, I found this doctor in New York who was a world-renowned specialist in treating parasites. Return flights to New York, booked far enough in advance, were a couple of £100 back then.
It's crazy that he's having to do so much of this research himself and looking into it. It feels like he's doing the job of a doctor here in investigating and understanding and exploring what he's got going on in his body and in his mind. I mean, good on Ren for doing this, because I think, like any of us, when you're ill, you don't want to be ill. You want to get better again. You want to get yourself sorted out. And, you know, from what he said in his previous chapters, like, clearly he wasn't getting any progress from the doctors. So he's like having to dive into this stuff himself. And God knows what it's costing as well. I mean, he's now talking about flights to New York and, you know, even sending off like tests and samples and stuff. That stuff's not necessarily cheap. So, but the price of your own health, you know, there's nothing more valuable to yourself, is there? So, all right, let's go.
Return flights to New York, booked far enough in advance, were a couple of £100 back then. The treatment itself was pretty cheap. I was in no way in a strong financial position, and neither was my family, so I did what I always do when I needed to get money. I wrote and recorded some songs from my laptop from bed. One about getting to New York to find a cure. I sold a modest amount of digital copies to my Facebook friends and my friends and family, just enough to afford a trip. During this time, my symptoms had gotten a lot worse, so the entire visit was a bit of a blur. I remember sitting in a waiting room and struggling to find an inch of wall space that wasn't taken up by the countless medical qualifications and the diplomas attached to it. I half expected the walls to start bragging about their Ivy League connections and debating the latest medical research while us mere mortals waited to be called in. When I was finally on the doctor's table, I was told to take off my clothes and put on a blue disposable paper robe. An old man in his 80s hobbled in, pulled on a medical glove, and proceeded to cover his finger in Vaseline.
Oh, the dignity, eh? It sounds so 100 years ago.
He's hobbled in, pulled on a medical glove, and proceeded to cover his finger in Vaseline. My heart sunk. I was pretty sure I knew what was coming next. I suddenly wished I'd experimented more with my ex-girlfriend. I didn't want to lose my backdoor virginity like this. He could have at least done me the courtesy of putting on some Marvin Gaye and lighting some candles, but instead I lay in uncomfortable silence on a brightly exposed operating table, while a firm-handed, overqualified old man inserted his index finger forcefully into my anus.
Sorry, that Marvin Gaye jarring with a bit of probing there is, and I'm guessing Ren meant that to be funny. Um, I feel like I shouldn't be laughing at this, but yeah, just without the Marvin Gaye, I think it would set a different tone. But enough said. Let's keep going.
Overqualified old man inserted his index finger forcefully into my anus. He never wrote to me afterwards. It felt used. Nonetheless, I was officially diagnosed with a parasitic amoeba and given a course of heavy-duty antibiotics to take. I believe it was paramomycin and secnidazole. After the course was finished, I pooped into a tube again, and they confirmed I got rid of the parasites. The constant internal techno raves and gurgling which usually plagued my stomach ceased, but I felt just as crap. And on top of all of that, I started becoming allergic to everything. And I mean fucking everything. The antibiotics had triggered some sort of massive food intolerance reaction. Whenever I'd eat certain foods, I'd get hit with a sudden hangover-like feeling, and my face would swell up. I'd later learned this was something called MCAS, and it was triggered by the antibiotics. This was the first time I felt the crushing defeat of pinning a lot of money, hopes, and time into a treatment only for it to make me worse.
I mean, good on Ren for pursuing this, because he was right. He did have something going on, which is good. But yeah, the drawbacks of antibiotics, they don't come without their own side effects and complications. And you close one door, you open another when it comes to trying to sort out these issues. Right.
Pinning a lot of money, hopes, and time into a treatment only for it to make me worse. I'd felt it to a small degree with every failed herbal protocol, every antidepressant that gave me side effects, but this was on a much larger scale. I almost felt guilty and full of shame for not getting better. I told my friends and family that this was going to be the thing that cured me. Not only did it fail, but I was now unable to tolerate basic carbohydrates, fruits, sugar, high histamine food, dairy, grains, without feeling terrible. I felt pretty crushed about that. Despite this, some tenacious part of me had a perseverance that didn't want to stop looking for answers. I was obsessed with trawling the internet. I strongly believe if I didn't have that tenacity to keep looking after every defeat, I'd probably be dead today. After about a year of living with my mum in North Wales, I got the itch, and I decided that I'd make a bold move to Brighton. Most days I didn't really have the energy to do much other than short walks, but I had a friend over there who lived with Emmy for years. It felt like a safe space, a place of understanding. Being a 23-year-old living with his mother didn't feel very cool either. He had a free room going, and he was a legend. I desperately craved my own independence. After going through the heartbreak of losing love and losing the exciting career opportunity, I needed to feel like I wasn't just sitting in the tomb in Wales waiting for death, even if it was a struggle.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for controlling your environment, your kind of destiny, like having a bigger picture is a massive motivator, especially when you're really in the pits. He's talking about being in a tomb in Wales. Like, he was obviously feeling like he was vegetating and not going anywhere, and trapped in this cycle of research and medication and just side effects and symptoms that were just debilitating for him. So yeah, having that big gear change to change where you're living, change your routines, change that environment, and that brings new motivation, and it brings hope, it brings positivity, and like the music's really creeping in here at this point, I think, with some of what he's discussed so far, with trying to make some money to get his treatment. And I know he's become pretty big in Brighton since he arrived there as well. So, and he's produced a lot of music there and done a lot of live performances. So he clearly begun to flourish once he was there. So I'm sure Ren will get into more of that as he gets through the chapters. I can relate to that idea as well, because having something to look forward to, that flag in the ground in the future, that challenge or something for you to reach towards, is an approach I've taken myself with depression and anxiety, and trying to pull myself out of that negative pit and that debilitating lifestyle. And that's worked for me. It definitely has. So I'm pleased to hear that Ren's incorporated that into his journey as well. All right, let's keep going.
I wasn't just sitting in the tomb in Wales waiting for death, even if it was a struggle. I made the move. It was a really nurturing space, and it was full of the lunatics of Brighton who would come and go. I was still living in a thick haze, but I was meeting people who weren't judging me for it. With this safety, I was slowly finding my personality again. Despite the comfortable environment, it seemed my symptoms were only getting worse. I started having pretty constant panic attacks. The first one felt like a heart attack. I'd never experienced a panic attack before, so I wasn't familiar with the symptoms. My whole face went numb, and my heart felt like it was about to beat out of my ribcage. I panicked and I phoned an ambulance. They put me in the back, they took all my vitals, and they told me I wasn't dying. I felt disappointed. These attacks would happen pretty habitually every week or so. My symptoms of derealisation seemed ever increasing. Derealisation is hard to describe to someone who's never experienced it. The closest thing I can come to is feeling like you're on bad drugs. You feel disconnected from yourself, like your soul has been vacuumed out of your body, and nothing around you quite feels real. Everything has an unusual undertone and nothing feels safe. I remember one night in the first year that I lived with Ben, there was this lightning storm of torrential rain. I went outside and I stood in a t-shirt hoping I'd be hit by a bolt of lightning and it would somehow shock me out of it. Unfortunately, I wasn't on Zeus's hit list that day. This urge to be shocked back into reality didn't really leave me. I remember one day I was walking back from the shops. I found an old analog television in an alleyway that was being thrown out. I can't quite remember the thought process that led me there. I just remember feeling angry, and I decided to smash the fucking pieces out of the TV in the alley. I picked it above my head and I hurled it towards the ground. The screen cracked, but it didn't shatter like I hoped it would. I did it again and again and again until there were large shards of glass lining the street. I saw one about the size of a kitchen knife and I picked it up. It's hard to rationally explain self-harm that's not a cry for help, because this wasn't a cry for help. I'd cried for help multiple times and no one listened. The pain I felt inside my body could never be done justice with words. There's a certain horror, a certain frustration of living in a body that would never give me a moment of peace. I felt constantly alienated. I had no doctors to tell me what was going on. They made me feel like a hypochondriac. There are no combination of words in the English language that can express that pain, that can express that frustration. There's no song I could write that would make you understand. In that moment, the closest and truest way I had of communicating my pain was driving a shard of glass into my chest and dragging it across until the blood was dripping down my body. It didn't hurt very much compared to what was already going on inside of me, and it didn't really help me feel better either, but it was truth, and there was beauty in that. Adrenaline gives you a brief moment of respite.
That was a heavy part. Big tone shift. That was a heavy part. A big shift in tone from the earlier section. That anger and that frustration, and there's a sense of hopelessness in all this, I think, because this isn't necessarily happening over a short period of time, and Ren's thinking the move will, being around new people and new opportunities is going to be good, but it's obviously come with some drawbacks for him, with him starting to have panic attacks and the anger and the frustration and, the TV situation that he's just talked about. There's some real anguish and torment in that, and that hopelessness of self-harm, and he's thinking it's going to help, but it's a difficult thing about self-harm. It can be an in-the-moment experience, and for some it can give that sense of relief or release, because all your focus and all your energy is going into the act itself, and For some people, it does provide a moment of peace, but then you're left with the damage that you've caused yourself, and a reminder and a memory. I won't talk too much about self-harm because I think it's a deeply personal experience for everybody, but it is something that I can definitely relate to. Let's hear more from Ren.
But it wasn't long until I was exactly where I started, just decorated in a little bit more blood than usual. I made sure nobody saw. I didn't want to cause any alarm. I didn't want anyone to be worried. So I cleaned it up when I got home, and then I resumed the life of the undead. In the next episode, I'll tell you the story of when I was stabbed by an ancient sword and when I met one of the most talented people that I know. I got tears on my sleeves.
So that was quite a powerful chapter there from Ren. A bit shorter than some of his others, but very powerful, very heavy, very raw, and it just shows that sometimes it's really hard talking about other people's experiences like this, and to hear it coming from them, that there's truth to that. That this is their lived experience, this is their story, and it's important that this is heard. And it's quite relatable for me in a lot of ways. So some of this is sitting a bit close to home. So it's hard for me to dive too deep into this, emotionally at least, because of that. Okay, let's look at his next song at the end of the chapter. I'm not sure what this one's called, so perhaps we'll find out a bit later, but it's got a similar vibe to the Depression song, so I'm guessing it's one of his much earlier songs. Let's sit back, take a listen.
I got tears on my sleeves, hold on, and holes in these jeans, hold on. I haven't slept in weeks, hold on. I haven't found no peace, hold on. I get my teeth tied, hold on, and these tears run dry, hold on. Two bloodshot eyes, hold on, two bloodshot eyes. I don't belong here, in a place where life has left me. I'm 25 going on 150. My body feels old and I'm trying to lift the weight from my soul, but it's moving against me. I've emptied out my teardrops, I lift my middle finger up. I'm screaming fuck you to all the demons here that keep me stuck. The pain is sharp like paper cuts, I hate too much, but yes I trust. I must combust, I must blow up, I must have roll this courage up. Boom, sparks fill the room, I'm feeling the rhythm I move. My soul is more worn than the soles in my shoes. Nike trainer blues, a man with none to lose. I think I lost my sanity, calamity in shoes. Poor choice maker, I rip out the pages of fate, then I roll them up like bizzle of paper. Taker, lung full of destiny, a man with no part, it's a very strange entity. Tears on my sleeves, hold on, and holes in these jeans, hold on. I haven't slept in weeks, hold on. I haven't found no peace, hold on.
I'm really loving the rhythm in this, and this hold on chorus that he's got going on is a nice little, it's a nice repetition, and there's quite a nice tempo to that, despite it obviously being quite heavy and autobiographical, as we've come to familiarise ourselves with for Ren. He's, speaks his truth about his life. So, okay.
I haven't slept in weeks, hold on. I haven't found no peace, hold on. I get my teeth tied, hold on, and these tears run dry, hold on. Two bloodshot eyes, hold on, two bloodshot eyes. Do you ever question your fate? The questions I make, is this all predetermined, the script or a play? Am I the protagonist in this tragedy, or will I be the author of stories unmade? If so, I'll dip in my quill to my ink pot, keep
keep on writing, never stop until my beating heart it flops. I write a whole different story. Scene one, a boy full of hope, a boy full of glory. Who stutters, I'm up to the top. Would rather be tougher and live it smoothly like butter, but not so bitter and cut up. And so I sit up and shut up. It's like I lit up and struck up the courage never to fuck up. And now I'm feeling the ruckus, feeling the static, and now I'm feeling the flames, and now I'm feeling the strength inside the ring with my pain. My boxing gloves and my hope that I trust to bust an uppercut, cut my demons up. Boom like a tsunami, smooth like a punani. Bend the words like origami, Salvador, I be the Dali. Only love like Bob Marley, golden ticket, call me Charlie. Riding Harley's Bengali, Tiger Star, call me Arnie. I'll be back. Now cut the slack, track your facts, relax, shit in the beast, and then seek it in the peace. And I'll reach the canopies, and yes, we climbing, building a brave new world inside a whole new designing. With all this fire, we burn like the sun. A new dawn is rising, a new dawn it comes. Yeah, diggity diggity down with all this corporation. They burn up the land for the greed that they run. Run deep with their roots, but their roots can be lifted. I'll be a renegade, yes, I make a fist kid. Try to seek truth in the kingdom of lies. A boy so lost with two bloodshot eyes. Tears on my sleeves, hold on. And holes in these jeans, hold on. I haven't slept in weeks, hold on. I haven't found no peace, hold on. I get mighty tired, hold on. And these tears run dry, hold on. Two bloodshot eyes, hold on. Two bloodshot eyes. Ha, ha, ha. Hold on. Hold on. Ha, ha, ha. Hold on. Hold on. Two bloodshot eyes. Hold on. Hold on. Two bloodshot eyes.
Ooh, that was a really nice little song there. Interesting balance is struck there. Not nowhere near as heavy as Depression at the end of his chapter 3 there, but he struck a nice kind of balance, I think, between talking about some of his own experiences and his struggles, and just making some of those popular references to music culture and popular culture, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger and a bit of Bob Marley in there, and others. And yeah, Catchy Beat. I quite like that one. What's it called? I don't know what this one's called. If you know, pop it in the comments. Let me know. Um, I quite like that. I'd definitely listen to it again. There was a bit in the middle there that you mentioned around fate, and that kind of struck with me because fate is one of those things that we believe in or we don't believe in quite often, and I think it's something that can appear to you more in life when you are struggling and going through hard times. I'm going to rewind to the middle bit here because I want to just play it.
Mighty tide, hold on, and these tears run dry, hold on. Two bloodshot eyes, hold on, two bloodshot eyes. Do you ever question your fate? The questions I make, is this all predetermined, the script or a play? Am I the protagonist?
Ren said, do we ever question our fate? Is it all predetermined? And it's so hard to know that, but I think as we go through life and gain more experience, I think it's quite a profound question that sits with us more and more, because how much control do we really have in life? And sometimes we strive and fight and put all our energy and all our worth into something to get to a place or to reach for something, and sometimes it's just never going to happen, and you just never really know how much you can dictate where your life goes. And you know, there are things we can control sometimes: where we live, what we do, what jobs we have, how we use our money, decisions that we make in life as well. But is any of that predetermined? are certain things going to happen anyway? It doesn't matter what course we take. We're still going to come on hardship, or we're still going to have challenges with our health or other life experiences that are out of our control. I think there's so much depth to that, and it's a really, as I say, it's a really profound question around fate. If you've got any comments around fate or any experiences of your own that elaborate on this, do share it in the comments, because I'll be really interested to hear from you. So that brings us to the end of chapter 4. Thank you for watching, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next chapter. Take care.